Today is Thursday, July 30th, 2015. We are here at the Woodridge Public Library with Fred Hohnke, who has been president for almost 20 years of the Woodridge Park District and has been living in Woodridge for 47 years.
Questions?
Yes.
We are, yeah.
So where were you born?
I was born in Oak Park, Illinois.
And who was the first generation immigrants in your family?
Oh, it must have been, well, my mother actually came over from England. And my grandparents, my father's family were in Germany, from Germany. But my father was born in Illinois.
And what were some of the traditions that came from England or Germany that you have practiced?
Well, I don't know. My mother always liked tea, and she was kind of English in her ways. My dad was German, liked to have beer and German food and things like that. But I don't know. As far as traditions, we pretty much Americanized everything.
You did. Was there anything at Christmas time that was particular to?
Nothing different than we do now. I mean, we had, the big Christmas tree and gifts and everything, but nothing that was significantly German or English or anything like that.
Did they meet here, your folks?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
How often did you go to church?
In the early years, I went pretty regularly. Then I started to not go so regularly as I got older. But I was confirmed in Bellwood. We lived in Bellwood, Illinois, and I was confirmed in church there and went to church on a regular basis.
Did you attend Sunday school?
Mm-hmm.
And what was a typical day of Sunday school like?
Well, Sunday school was before the church service, and you just go in, and there was a teacher that would go through Bible studies and things like that. It was, pretty simple.
Was Bellwood ethnically different or exclusive or?
No, it was a lot of German areas, Germanic.
Okay.
Does anybody in your family speak German or?
My father spoke a little bit, but very little. I mean, nobody spoke on a fluent basis or anything.
And do you have any stories about your parents growing up?
That you like to tell?
Yeah.
Or that will be okay to tell?
I don't know. My mother was a stay-at-home mother. My dad worked for the village and was in charge of the water. They didn't have village administrators at that time, so he ran the water department, the electrical department, and all of that. Was kind of like a village administrator for the village of Bellwood for many years. He was a volunteer fireman. I don't know. They were, that was what they did anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. Pretty typical.
Mm-hmm.
And any enduring memories of your childhood?
Well, it was always a fun place to be. It was my brother and myself. We grew up. It was a, happy home, and we played outside a lot. You would stay outside. Now it's different, but you used to stay outside until it got dark, and then you'd come back in, and we played in the neighborhood and ran around the neighborhood. We had bicycles and used to ride our bikes all over and things like this. We'd ride all the way out to Fullersburg, where Fullersburg is in the Oak Brook area. We'd ride all the way from Bellwood out there. You could do things like that without, having too much problems or any kind of problems or anything. So.
And where did you go to school?
I went to Roosevelt School in Bellwood, Illinois, and Roosevelt Junior High School, and then Proviso East High School in Maywood. And
what were some of the activities that you were involved in, or what were the activities that were offered to the students? Well,
they were typical. There were after-school programs. There were sports and athletics, and football games we would go to, basketball games, all of that sort of thing. We had some real sports people that came out of Proviso High School.
And as teenagers, what was popular among all of you? What was the social trend?
That was a long time ago. I don't know. We would go to school. We would go out after school. We would, date dances. I used to have sock hops and things like that. But that's what I recall mostly. I mean, there wasn't, anything. Sporting events were took up some time.
Can you describe some of like the music that you would all listen to, or some of the movies that you would watch?
Well, music was even before the Beatles' time. I mean, there was, we used to listen to Sinatra and things like that in the house. My parents would like, is that type of music. Movies, and I was never much of a movie buff. I still don't go to very many movies. I don't remember some of the old movies. I don't know. We used to go on Saturday, and there would be cartoons in the morning. The early shows had cartoons and matinees and things like that. And adventure movies, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry. You'd never heard of those guys, but
I have.
Yeah.
So your neighborhood sounds like it was pretty stable, and was there any tension at school among other ethnic groups that you remember?
Not really, no. Well, Bellwood was all pretty much white at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Proviso. There was just a few African Americans at Proviso. Now it's largely all African American, but back then it was probably 95% white.
Okay. And so how did you get from Proviso, graduating from Proviso to Woodridge?
Well, I met my wife. We worked together.
There you go.
In 1957, we were both working at the same company, and we dated for quite a number of years, and we were married in '66, and lived in an apartment in Oak Park for 1 year, and had our daughter. And it was a one-bedroom apartment, and we decided to look for a home. So we were out exploring various areas looking for homes. Schaumburg was very active at the time. Most people were moving up in the northern suburbs. And we looked up there, and we looked at homes up there. And one Sunday we were driving down Route 53, and the models were right along Route 53, which is across from what is now Seven Bridges. And we stopped in there and looked at the homes, and the homes were very large homes at a reasonable price. And we came back the next week and looked at some more and put a deposit down. They were building, Winston was building all these homes in Woodridge, all the whole Winston area homes out there. So we bought a home in Woodridge and moved in the fall of '68.
Okay.
And when you moved to Woodridge, what were the neighbors like?
Neighbors were just like us. We're mostly all young families with very small children, one or two very small children. And we had a great group of neighbors along 71st Street there where we live.
And did you and your neighbors often have get-togethers?
Oh, sure, all the time. We used to play bocce ball in the backyards. There weren't any trees or anything then, so all the yards were connected, and it was all grass lawns. And we'd play bocce ball and different games in the backyard, and we'd go out to dinner, and we did all kinds of events together. All the neighbors got together.
And did the kids go out and play?
Well, the kids were very small, but yeah, they were outside and played, but they were all like 2 and 3 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you remember if you left your doors open when you first got here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, there was no. I still leave my doors open pretty much. Yeah. Not when we go away, but during the day the doors are unlocked and everything. So that's Woodridge's always been a very safe area.
So did you keep the same job that you had when you were living in Oak Park when you moved here?
I worked for the same company. Yes, I worked for the same company for 48 years. I rose up through the ranks, but yes.
And did that prepare you for your Park District position?
Oh, no, not really. I mean, some of it was, administratively and everything like that. I wound up as the president of the company, and I ran for the Park District back in '89. They were expanding, and doing some development work across the street from our house where Hawthorne Hill was and everything. And I was attending meetings with the president at that time was Peggy Healy, who was League of Women Voters lady. She was the president of Park District, and she encouraged me to run. She was not going to run again, and she encouraged me to run for election for the Park District.
Okay.
And so I and another lady ran for the office, and I've been on ever since.
So what would you say is your main, would you say, contribution to the Park District?
Well, we've done all kinds of things. I mean, we've added hundreds of acres of parkland. We built Cypress Cove. We're building the rec center over on 83rd Street. We built, there used to be a pool, Hobson Pool used to be there, which we closed, and now it's a spray pad. There used to be a pool at 75th and Woodridge Drive, which deteriorated, and that's when we closed that down and built Cypress Cove. And we put an addition on Cypress Cove when we closed the Hobson Pool. We built 20-some miles of bike paths all through the village. We've developed the Park District's come a long way in the last 25 years or so. Mm-hmm. Plus the recreation programs. We have over 1,000 recreation programs that are offered to people of all ages, from kids to seniors.
And what were some of the perks that you gained as being president of the Park District?
Well, all this land right next to the library, we bought that in conjunction with the village from School District 99. That all belongs to the Park District and the village. All 44 acres there. The Hawthorne Hill was 60-some acres between 71st and 75th Street and Woodridge Drive and Route 53. Westminster Park is a new park on south side of town. All the south side parks are Windy Point Park, Ides Grove, East and West Parks. Those are all parks that weren't there when I got on the park board. We've added all of it. As a development comes in and they build homes and we build parks, the developers have to donate a portion of their land for park purposes, and then we develop the parks.
And has it always been that way?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that something that
No.
came into being?
Well, it's been that way for a long time, since before I was on the board. That there's a land ordinance that when a developer comes in, he has to, if it's a small development, he can offer cash in place of a land donation, but any development of any size donates land to the Park District.
Okay. And what year was it that land was purchased from?
Oh, that's
District
fairly
99?
recent. That's about 2007, maybe 7, 8, something like that. It's about 7, 8 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was a condemnation suit. They were going to build a high school. That was supposed to be a site at the third high school, Woodridge High School. And that was defeated by referendum many, many years ago, and they never had a use for it. So we tried to purchase it from the school district, and the school district didn't want to let it go, and then the village filed a condemnation suit against it, and we won the suit and are paying for it.
So what does that mean, condemnation suit?
Well, you can take the land. You can take the land if it's not being used for the purpose. A municipality can condemn the land and take it for public use.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's how we acquired that. It went through court, but then we have to pay a fair price for it. I mean, you just don't take it, but you have to pay a fair price for it. But so that belongs 50-50 to the village and the Park District.
Okay.
And there's a development plan that has been worked on to develop that property, and all kinds of parkland and promenades and all kinds of different things.
Oh, so is it a dream, or is it something that will be implemented?
It'll
definitely?
be implemented as money becomes available, or grants are awarded, or something. It'd be an expensive project to do, but there must be a plan here in the library someplace. The village has copies of it, and we have copies of it. And we all agreed to, the village board and the park board all agreed to what should go in there after a planner spent a year
Okay.
figuring it out and revising it. So.
Okay.
And how much do you want to expand Woodridge?
Well, Woodridge is pretty much landlocked right now. There's fill-in developments like the tree farm on 83rd Street is being developed into 140 some homes. And there's another development down along Frontage Road, down along High 55. But as far as going, we're pretty much expanded out. Naperville's to the west, Darion's to the east, Downers Grove is to the north, and Bolingbrook is on the other end. So there's very little room to expand anymore because you run into somebody else's land, somebody else's boundaries.
So what is one of your major accomplishments of being the president of the Woodridge Public District?
Well, some of the things I outlined, I think Cypress Cove is one of the most popular water parks in the whole Chicagoland area. The golf course, we run the Village Greens Golf Course. That's part of the Park District. It's actually owned by the village, but we manage it. All the additional parks that we've built expanded. The Park District's expanded tremendously.
And what were some lessons that you've gained from your experience as being president?
I don't know, I guess how to cooperate with a board. You're on a 5-person board, and plus you need to please the residents, so people want certain things, and you can't afford to do everything, but you can sit down and try and give the people what they want, and at the same time be cautious of how much tax dollars you are asking for. So.
And was there ever a time where people would disagree on something?
There's at times, but if you work it out, I mean, that's, and it goes to a vote. There's 5 people on a board, so if it's 3-2 one way, well, the 3 win. So that's, the way politics works, or the way boards work. The library has a board, the village has a board. Every taxing body has a board of people that make the decisions.
And you are independent of the village as far as your decisions.
Yeah, we're completely separate from the village. We're a separate taxing body from the village.
And what about the schools? Like, how have you seen them progress since you've been always kind of like in the inside of Woodridge and see how everything runs? How have you seen like the school progress or kind of backtrack?
Well, I don't know how they actually operate the schools, but the schools have been added on since I've been here, in the years I've been here. Meadowview School was built. Jefferson wasn't even there when we moved in. There wasn't at Jefferson High School, Jefferson Junior High. Sipley was a new school. So, the school district has expanded along with the Park District and along with the other village government. The library was a little house over on Forest Glen Parkway many years ago. The Village Hall was a little building down on 83rd Street. I mean, things have grown tremendously.
And
over
where
the
was
last
the
40
Park District then?
Park
in
District
those
was
days?
across, in a house, 2909 Forest Glen Parkway is a house right across from the Forest Glen Park.
Okay.
That was
Same
in a
area.
house. And the library was in a house across the street in a little cul-de-sac
Okay.
right over there on Forest Glen Parkway. So it was pretty primitive back in those days.
So if we didn't have a junior high, did the kids go 1 K through 8 in the
I think they did, yeah.
elementary
Goodrich
schools?
was there. Goodrich has been there for a long time. I think they went K through 8
All right.
before they built the junior high.
Uh-huh. And what do you know about the community's feelings about the 3rd high school?
Well, there'll never be a 3rd high school. They, way back in the 60s is when the referendum was to put a 3rd high school up, but it was soundly defeated a couple of times.
Okay.
And then the school district 99, school board 99, decided to expand both North and South high schools. They put big additions on both of the high schools, which accomplished the same thing as building another high school with a lot less money.
Okay.
So that's why this land was always empty for all those years.
Yeah, Woodridge does have a lot of nice parkland.
Mm-hmm.
So, Woodridge from then, how does it compare to now?
Well, back then it was pretty primitive. I mean, 75th Street was a 2-lane road, and 71st Street used to go straight through to Woodward Avenue. There was all farmland around here, and there were, most of the residential was on the south side of 75th, where the first section, the original section of Woodridge, was south of 75th until Winston came in and built this. Woodridge Center came along after that. That's how 71st Street now connects up here to Woodridge Drive, and then they made Center Drive. That was never there before 71st Street. We just go across. And it was a stone road. When we moved in, it was just a gravel road. And there are horses and cows. Nadelhofer had horses over here where next to Lake Harriet is now. There was a farm there that belonged to the Nadelhofers, who owned all the farmland. That's where Lake Harriet and Lake Carlton are named after Mr. and Mrs. Nadelhofer that had the farm there.
So was that farm like an area of attraction where people would just go to visit and see the animals, or was it just
No, it was just a farm, just
A working farm.
working farm. Corn grew all over. This was all cornfields. All around here was all cornfields. This is now.
So Carlton and Harriet are Herb's parents? Okay. We're going to talk to Herb, I hope.
Yeah, Herb used to live in the house down the street right there, and him and his wife and the daughters, and they had horses right there. They'd ride the horses down past my house on 71st Street, all the time. And yeah, Herb's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
In fact, when we moved in, I'll tell you a story for your recording. When we moved in 68, we would come out and look and see what kind of progress they had made on building the home. Because they would build it, they'd build a whole block at a time, and they would come. So we'd come out on Sundays and see how much had been accomplished. And in the fall of 68 or the summer of 68, I don't know if it was August or so, was the Democratic Convention in Chicago, when they had all the rioting and all the peace people were protesting the Vietnam War and everything. And Carlton Nadelhofer allowed all the protesters to camp out on the farm out here on the corner of 71st Street. And they would pitch their tents and be here during the day, and then they'd go downtown and Grant Park and riot and fight the police in the evening. So that was, we were questioning the wisdom of buying a house on 71st Street, but that was all going on. But some of the people you read about in history books, David Dellinger and Abby Hoffman and all of those people, they were all part of the people that were rioting or protesting the Vietnam War and fighting with the police and protesting the Democratic Convention down in Chicago in 68.
And you were in Oak Park then? Is that what
Yeah, we were just...
And building here?
Yeah, we were building here, and we moved in shortly after that, in the next couple months, right after that.
So that kind of thing didn't spill over to Oak Park?
No, it was strictly Chicago.
And what do you remember about the feelings toward Mayor Daley then?
Well, that was the original Mayor Daley. That was Rich's dad.
Yeah.
He was giving shoot-to-kill orders and all kinds of things like that. They were shooting and throwing tear gas, and it was a big event at the time, But that was their connection to Woodridge anyway, because Carlton, when Mr. Carlton Nadelhofer died, they waked him right there in the farmhouse. That's the way they used to do things, and for years until at Nadelhofer Courts, just a new thing that was all empty there, and that's where his old barn. He had a great big barn right there. It was, historic.
So speaking of protests, do you remember anything from like the civil rights movement in Woodridge specifically?
No, it didn't really affect Woodridge, and that was earlier anyway. But Woodridge never really had much of an African American population or any kind of thing like that.
And what about about now? Because like now, kind of Woodridge is very like diverse and everything.
Mhm.
So what do you think like the people's attitude towards like the minority is and has changed over time?
Oh, I think it's great. You know, the diversity in Woodridge is really excellent, and everyone gets along, and you know, there's different groups, and you know, they're full of diversity and things like that. So, you know, there doesn't seem to be any kind of problems like that here.
Has Woodridge always been ethnically diverse?
No, it was mostly all white back in those days, but now it's you know, much more diverse, and everybody's accepted. I mean, I don't think there's any kind of feelings of racism or anything like that any place.
And so going back to the Nadelhoffers, were you friendly with
We used to say hello. I know Herb. I mean, Herb used to come to the Park District and would talk about things and stuff like that.
Okay.
But they'd say hello when they rode by in the horses or whatever. The daughters were out there, you know. So yeah, it was. They were part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did you feel about it when all that land got sold?
Well, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. I mean, you know, just like the tree farm over there, Heights Tree Farm has been there selling Christmas trees for all these 40, 50 years, and now it's all gone. But you expect that to happen as development goes. I mean, there's not much you can do about it. It just, you know, the land can't stay there, and people pay taxes on it, and it's their property to do with what they wish. So yeah, sometimes it's kind of sad, but it's, you know, that's why the Park District tries to preserve as much land as possible.
Yeah.
All that Hawthorne Hill Woods, that's all Park District property that we have, you know, between 71st and 75th.
Yeah, it's a nice feature, I think,
yeah.
in anywhere.
Yeah, Woodridge is very unique because there's no downtown, and as you drive into town, if you come down Woodridge Drive, there's open space on both sides. The woods is over. That's the original Hawthorne Hill Woods. It's been there for all these years, so, and that'll never be developed. I mean, we may develop it with some trails and use it for things. We have our haunted forest walk and some special events in there and things, but it won't be developed residentially or anything.
And are you guys planning on adding a downtown, sort of like how Downers Grove and Naperville has?
No, it'll never happen. There's no place to do it. And when we had planning sessions on this property next door, that was definitely, people were totally against any kind of development of buildings or anything like that. They want open land and parkland and walkways, and there's a promenade and things like that in there, you know. A market, what do they call it, farmers market or something like that. Those are the kind of things that people are looking for. There's not anybody anxious to see a lot of development going in.
So do you recall any local Woodridge scandals ever occurring?
Scandals?
No.
Not that I can think of. I don't know, no. I mean, Mayor Murphy was here for 30-some years, and he was as straight as anybody. I mean, we worked together for years and years. Before that, there were other mayors and things, but now there's nothing that I ever heard of.
So, is there a particular event or person that you look back on that maybe shaped your life?
I don't know, my parents, I guess. I mean, the way we were brought up to, you know, and as I mentioned, my dad was a park commissioner way back in Bellwood at the Memorial Park back in the 1940s, so that probably had something to do with it. We were brought up being involved with the Park District and, you know, being able to swim in a swimming pool and Washington Boulevard over there in Bellwood. And so things like that probably influenced me to a great degree. So.
So when you first moved to Woodridge, how many people actually owned a TV, or how many people owned a car?
Well, I think in '68, most of the people had TVs and automobile. You had to have an automobile if you lived out here because there weren't any retail stores. There wasn't any Jewel over here or anything like that. You know, the closest Jewel was down on Butterfield in 53. There was a little grocery store in the corner of this plaza over wherever I'm pointing to, the Woodridge Plaza. There was a little IGA store or something over there. But there weren't any supermarkets. Home Depot, none of that development, none of that was there, of course. That was all farmland. There wasn't anything close by. So we bought a second car as soon as we moved in because my wife had to have a car because I took mine to work all the time, so she had to have a car to get around. And so you had to have cars, and TVs were common then. I mean, we had our first TV in Bellwood back in, I don't know, very early. The screen was about postcard size, you know. The TV was gigantic and the screen was that big. That was back in the 50s sometime when, before I left home. So TVs and cars were fairly common, or very common, actually.
And did young people work at an early age?
You know, after high school, a lot went to college. Some didn't go to college, you know, stuff like that. So they went to work, or it was probably wasn't much different than I don't know. There's probably more go to college now than did back then, but
I can't remember. Did you go to college?
no.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
But you were in a job for
Got
your
an
company for a long
office
time.
job in 17 and stayed there until I retired 10 years ago. So.
And going back to the technology talk, like you were saying how you had TVs, what about phones? What was the way to communicate between neighbors or families?
Well, telephones, but they were, you know, dial telephones or push button telephones, and you had an exchange, you know, I don't know what the number was, but it wasn't, you know, there wasn't any 630 or anything. You just dialed the exchange. It was like 2 letters and the number, you know, and you would talk to people. There weren't all your fancy cell phones and all the things that you guys play around with now. There was anything like that, of course, but first cell phone I had was about that big.
I remember those. Yeah,
right.
they were like bricks.
Like a brick. That's what they used to call them, a brick. You know, I would hold a thing like this. It was a great big black telephone. So, but yeah, they were mostly telephone.
So did you have to memorize the actual phone numbers, or did you actually have like a list?
Like a notepad?
Yeah.
Well, you could do that. I mean, once you would call frequently, you would have in your head. But yeah, but you would keep numbers. You know, you had emergency numbers and numbers pasted on a cabinet door or something like that. You know, sure. So yeah, and of course the telephone company put out their big telephone books with everything, and you could look up. But it doesn't seem that long ago.
Well, it really wasn't.
Technology really moves fast.
Do the area park districts cooperate or collaborate?
Oh,
or
sure.
What do you do with?
Sure. I know all the people from all the other park districts. There's an Illinois Association of Park Districts that all the park districts belong to. Or I was president of the state association back in '97, and. But yeah, there's committees, there's statewide committees, or people come from all the different areas of the state to work out things. And there's a legislative group, you know, lobbies for park district funding in Springfield and Washington. Then there's a National Recreation and Park Association in Washington that does the same thing at the federal level.
And so how is the park district funded?
Through
How
taxes. It's only 2 ways: through taxes and the money we take in through programs and admissions and things of that nature.
So you don't get federal funding and no state funding? Okay.
No. Not no different than the school districts. The school districts get all of that. And the village has all kinds of ways of collecting funds, but all we get is property taxes and fees and dues, fees from programs.
All right.
Did Woodridge have any popular local sports teams?
Well, I used to coach baseball. My kids' teams were very popular. No, we don't. I don't know. Lyle, I guess Benedictine has teams and stuff like that. I've never been involved with any of that. But WAA is the Woodridge Athletic Association, has a great program. The Woodridge Soccer Association, soccer is real big in Woodridge. Everybody plays soccer out here, so we're always looking for more soccer fields and places to put games and practices and things.
And those are under the Park District,
Mhm.
those two
Mm-hmm.
that you mentioned?
In fact, the rec center will have an indoor soccer field, full-size indoor soccer field, when the rec center gets built.
And when is that due to be completed, do you know?
The fall of 17.
Okay. Coming along.
No, wait a minute, fall of 16, I'm telling you wrong. The fall of 16. This is 15 already, so we...
In a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes about a year and a half to build. We're under construction now, so
Mhm.
so before October, November of 16, it should be finished.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it's a big project.
So do you have any stories about coaching baseball?
Well, that was a real fun time.
Yeah.
I had coached two teams. My kids are 13 months apart. My two boys are 13 months apart. So they were always one level different. So I would coach one team or manage one team and coach on another team. And, we'd run back and forth between baseball fields just to be at both places that covered both of the games. I don't know. It was just a fun time teaching the kids and seeing them develop, from the fun time where 7-year-olds, when you do 7 and 8-year-old instructional baseball, and they just start out, and the kids would be out in the field picking dandelions, and, looking around and stuff like that. But you see them develop and, get better and better. And they're 9 and 10, they start pitching themselves and go on from there. And both of my kids played for Downers Grove North for high school baseball, and one went on and played for college for Augustana College. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, I suppose there was crazy stories we had. Each game was a crazy story, pretty much. But we had a lot of fun with baseball during all the years I did it.
And do you have any enduring memories about your kids besides baseball?
Oh, sure. Kids are always fun. I mean, there's two are married now. My daughter's not married, but they're all off on their own and doing quite well. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, we used to play and take trips. We went to Disney World and went to New Orleans. We used to drive all over, and things were different then. You didn't have all the car seats and everything. We had a station wagon, and we'd throw a couple blankets in the back of the station wagon. The back seat would fold down, and the kids would lay back there and read and do puzzles or whatever, and we'd drive across the country that way. So we would travel a lot and see different places.
Was there anything you thought about that you wanted to make sure you told us when you were anticipating coming in?
Yeah, just, it's just been a great place to live for all the years. I mean, we really enjoyed it. I couldn't think of a better place to be than here in Woodridge. I mean, we really fell in love with it as soon as we moved in here and we first saw the model homes even. We really thought that this was a nice little place to live, and it's been that way ever since. Really enjoyed it.
And you've made a major contribution there in the Park District. Yeah. I think Woodridge has really enjoyed having you, too.
Well, I hope so.
I don't know. I don't think I have any more questions.
I think we actually covered it all.
Did you?
I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah, Tim went pretty fast there. The beginning. Your family, pretty much you stayed in one place during all of your early days. And you still leave your doors open.
Very much.
Well, thank you, Fred. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
coming in.
It's been fun.
You should be very proud of everything the Park District has accomplished.
I am, yes. I
Yeah,
really enjoy
and it is a
my
beautiful
involvement with
place
the
to
Park
live.
District, and I think, we've made Woodridge a better place because of it. So.
Good job.
Well, thank you.